Hello, good evening, and welcome to the second Facebook Live expert panel session of the year. So everyone's had a bit of a rush tonight, so we're all a little bit flustered from our days. Everybody's super busy at the minute. And that's kind of what we really want to talk about tonight. We want to kind of get an idea of what's going on out there in the industry, what you guys are seeing, talk to the guys that are watching about the changes that are coming, and kind of like just give a bit of an overview about where the industry is going with relation to heat pumps and energy efficiency and the net zero journey. So let me first of all let the guys introduce themselves for those that have never been on before, because we've got quite a lot of new members in the group. So over to you, Rich.
I'm Rich. I'm from Mid-Wales Plumbing Heat Supplies, coming live from my work in progress plant room at the moment. So yeah, after a few years, decided to rip out all my plant room and start again. So yeah, that's what I've been doing the last couple of weeks. Over to you, Kimbo.
Yeah, I'd like to be ripping my plant room out, but I'm too old for all that. So I'm just going to carry on with my ideal classic. It'll probably see me out. So I'm Kimbo from the Heating Academy. And well, those of you that don't know me, I run a bit of a training team a couple of times a month, just trying to get to grips with flow, really, understanding how we get the right amount of hot water to the right place at the right time at the right temperature. Not that difficult. A couple of simple triangles, a couple of simple formulas, and you can sort of crack most of it in a couple of days and go away far better informed than when you came, which is what the 2 days are all about. So how about you, Rhiannon? Who are you?
My name's Rhiannon. I have come off the tools a few years ago, and now I did work for an installer, but now I work for a company called 𝗺𝗲𝗺𝗀𝗺, and they kind of just want to hand power back a little bit to the consumer, that kind of thing. Just want to start encouraging people that they can have confidence in the system. There's a lot of negative press out there, and to be able to give people completely independent personal advice. That's the sort of thing I'm doing now.
Great, that's great. That was one of the things I was going to talk about, you know, the consumer awareness of it, but maybe we can move on to that a bit later. So let's talk about what we're sort of seeing, what changes we're seeing out there at the moment in relation to, you know, what the guys are doing. Rich, you want to give us a bit of your background on that?
So obviously from the merchanting side, and obviously I keep quite on the pulse with things, and you know what the industry's doing, where we're going. We are definitely going through a transition at the moment. There's a big transition of work from maybe a lot on my customer base, actually, because a lot of the guys that have used us for many years have predominantly been gas boiler installers, and obviously but very top end gas boiler installers. So the guys that have been on Kimbo's course, the guys that have learned about flow, learned about system design properly, and they've just naturally moved on to sort of heat pumps. So, you know, we need a higher sort of caliber of installer to do heat pump jobs, and those guys have moved on. So what that's meaning for our business is we're kind of having to move on a little bit as well. So where we were predominantly gas boiler sales, we're now diversifying into heat pump sales as well. So there's also a very big call for renewables as well at the moment. So I don't think I've ever seen so many people putting battery storage in, or PV on the roof, or exploring that sort of area as well. So as far as things are going, we're shifting at a rapid pace at the moment. And kind of for me, it's I've kind of struggled a little bit, you know, as a small business, you know, to transition from something is your bread and butter over to something else that, you know, is not dangerous to do, but certainly takes a lot of capital, a lot of investment, a lot of retraining of staff, things like that. So don't envy any small independent merchants at the moment, because there's a very big move at the moment across the renewables, and you know, that's great. You know, that's kind of where we need to be, and that's where we need to be going, and you know, that's what the government's calling for at the end of the day. So, you know, and especially I think since they put the 7.5, you know, put the bus grant up from £5,000 to 7.5 grand, which is kind of what we predicted last June when we did Installer Show last year. We kind of said, look, the 5 grand isn't enough, it needs to go up. I kind of put the ballpark figure out there. I said about 10 grand. You know, if it went to 10K, things would start flying, and it went 7.5K. And things are starting to progress now and starting to move on. And people who were looking at maybe getting a heat pump at the 5 grand mark are now definitely coming back to their installers and saying, look, can we revisit that? Now there's a 7.5 grand incentive to, you know, swap over to a heat pump. So
yeah, it has gone up quite a lot. I think the stats from the government say that I'm not sure exactly what they are, but there was a massive surge in October when they put literally the 2 weeks after. Yeah. It went up hugely, the applications for the grant. Obviously then petered off a little bit because of seasonality, Christmas and all that sort of stuff, people thinking about other things. But, you know, we all know that there is that 600,000 a year target that the government set, finger in the air. But Rhiannon, give us a bit about what you're seeing in your world.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing I would say with the increase that we saw in sort of interest in the grant after, you know, they announced it, you've got to remember that there would have been a lot of people in maybe the month, maybe even 2 months before that was, you know, announced, that were kind of holding off, or certainly the month before. So when it was announced, it was like coming in a few weeks. So everyone would have just like tools down and waited until that came in. And I know when I was working for the company that was at, you know, we had to reapply for a few and all that kind of stuff. So that would have been part of those stats that we did see. So I do genuinely think people are more interested. I think it's much more in our sort of mainstream media. You know, I actually see adverts for heat pumps now, and that is like a refreshing change. I think there's not quite enough good news stories out there yet. There's still, everyone likes a negative story, unfortunately, and, you know, clickbait and all that kind of thing. But I mean, I've just been saying it for so long. We just really need to instill confidence in people that this technology can work and that people know what they're doing, and then it's easy. You know, it's so much easier.
One of those confidence things, though, you know, like the heat pump monitor.org thing. That's a really good thing that we did the session on last time, Claire.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, that's just such a brilliant thing because it just gives complete, what am I looking for? Completely unrestricted access to someone's system to completely analyze it and see what, you know, was it running any good? And you know what I mean? And that
it's totally unbiased, isn't it? It's like completely unbiased information, factual about what's happening, and
you can't argue against it.
No, you can't.
Gives them the information to be able to, like we said last time, make changes to make it better and more efficient.
Yeah.
So
it's not like you have to believe in heat pumps. You don't have to believe in heat pumps. You don't have to have a faith that they'll work anymore. The facts are there, and I think that has been really helpful to people who, I mean, we're still in the early adopter stage, aren't we? There's still
because there's a lot of people that are saying, as you say, negative stuff, and it won't work in this type of house, and it doesn't work in drafty, cold, massive castles or whatever. But it seems like there's sort of, with this monitoring, there's stuff that can be done by the installer as well as the homeowner, because, you know, Damo's been working with people to get their numbers up and better efficiencies,
Yeah.
It's a great tool. I mean, you know, when you imagine the days we didn't have that, which, you know, 10 years ago we didn't have things like that, and you know, we were, you know, we even the best will in the world, you know, and we were using some of the 𝗵𝗲𝗀𝗹𝗃 tables and stuff like that to get our velocities correct for our pipe work, and it's very manual. But you know, even if you do all that, you're still not doing that fine level of tweaking and tuning, and you know, just to have that transparency and see that data, and the installers actually picking it up now properly and actually going, look, you know, and they're trying to beat each other on the table, which is hilarious. But it just goes to show what
like a good competition.
Well, there's nothing like healthy competition, is there, to like promote? Because I think without that table, I think they'd still be pretty boring actually. But you know, things like that, just that, you know, Nathan Gambling actually said a long time ago, if we gamify a lot of things, then actually, you know, you actually
become a bit more interested, don't they?
Yeah,
They've invested in it, and you want to be the best and beat the rest.
Question is, do you think that any of the big players, so we see a lot of like 𝗵𝗲𝗁𝗃 have gone big into installs now, and they're using the grant system, British Gas, the kind of big players, do you think they're going to use Open Monitor
I think they will. I think you use it as a very clever business tool. I mean, if you look at some of the guys like Simon from Urban Plumbers, he's using the table very cleverly with his own system. You know, if you're at the top of that table, you know, you're going to be busy, right? If you can prove out that you can design and install a system that runs at those, you know, 𝗁𝗍𝗶 of 5.1, I think is running at the moment, you know, and that's just phenomenal. You know, for every pound you're putting into that heat pump, you're getting £5, 10 pence worth of heat out of it. That's just amazing. You know, it's just, you can't get that with a gas boiler. You cannot get that with a gas boiler.
Mm. Now, I say to some of the guys that come about how fortunate they are and unfortunate at the same time with these tables. They're fortunate in as much as the likes of us have spent 10 years getting our information from trends and comments from customers, because you have to ask the customer, oh, how's it going? And they say, oh, it's a bit too warm, and you turn it down a bit. You had no real way of monitoring anything. Now, of course, everyone's got everybody's data on the phone, and you can actually see what's going on, which is absolutely brilliant from a learning point of view. The downside to that for the installer, and the upside to that for the customer, is the customer can now see if they've got a crap system. And unfortunately, you know, we have all these smart meters and everything that tell us how much energy we're using. What we don't have is a meter that tells us how much energy we're wasting, because if gas customers knew how much energy they were wasting because they've had crap systems installed, they'd be jumping up and down saying, look, this, you know, I'm right, it's not COP obviously, but you know, I should only be spending or using this amount of gas to warm my house. In actual fact, I'm using 25% more. So what's going on? No one's accountable with boilers, but everyone now is going to start to be accountable for heat pumps. And I am interested in how that's going to work out. And Rhiannon was talking about the big boys. We seem to have two complete tiers of installer. We've got the self-employed guys, or the small companies, who usually the guys that rock up and see me. They're the guys that are keen to get things right. They want to. That's the type of person they are, which is why they come. They're keen to do a good system. They want to have a good COP. They want to do it properly and have happy customers and save the planet and all the rest of it. So you've got those guys on one side that are looking at the sort of tables and thinking, yeah, I want to be up there in the 4s. You know, I'm going to do jobs so that I can get up there in the 4s and the 4.5. And then you've got the big companies who just won't care as long as it's over the legal minimum, because they're going to just bang them in as quick as they can, like the old combi boilers. And I mean, you know, we can't mention any names here, but we see systems all the time. People that go around to try and sort systems out, and the first thing you say is, God, blimey, who fitted this? You know, you've got B&Q insulation with a cable tie every 6 feet on the outside, and you say, who fitted this? And it's the big companies that are just in it for the money. You know, we need to bridge that gap somehow. We need to make those people accountable as well. I don't think it's fair that a customer can just buy a heat pump and only be guaranteed, if that they're going to get a COP of 2.8, which I think is the minimum requirement now, when in actual fact, if you just put your mind to it and do the job a bit better, you can get 3.5, 4, and I wouldn't say it's easy to get 4.5. You can certainly get a much better result from it. The bad press thing as well. I mean, I know Rhiannon's got one, and I know people that got. I haven't got one myself. It's going in this year, but I know people with heat pumps and heat pump jobs that we've done. People say it's absolutely amazing to have a house that's the same temperature in every room all day, and it's a difficult sell to say to someone that leave it on all day. It's on all day and on all night, and it keeps everything. Whoa, I want to do that. I want to switch it off at night. It's a completely different concept, and somehow we got to sell that concept to the customer to want that. You know, we you know, Putin and his gas thing, we've been, you know, turning everything down and using as little gas as ever. And I've noticed it here. You know, our sitting room is still the same temperature because that's where we live. But now, you know, when you want to go for a pee, you take a deep breath, grab a blanket, and run down the hall and have a pee as quick as you can because it's 2 degrees low. And you want to make a cup of tea. Blimey, you've got to take a woolly jumper with you, you know. That's an experience until you've experienced that, what a heat pump can do, and how the people with heat pumps don't have to do that. They can just leave the house at the same temperature and if you get a good installer, it'll actually be a bit cheaper to run. I think it's a false thing for these sort of double glazing salesmen that come around trying to sell you heat pumps.
Kimbo, can you hang on a sec? We've got a bit of something going on. I know.
I did mute mine to see if it was me, but I think
yeah, I muted Rhiannon. I think it might be you, Rhiannon. Sounds like someone's wobbling something.
It's really weird because when I plugged my phone in to charge it, because I had to switch.
Yeah, and that's when it started. Sorry, guys. Technical issues.
No, it's not.
Bear with us.
Apologies.
Right, it is Rhiannon. It stops when I mute her.
Okay.
Hopefully it won't run out. There you go. It's fine now.
No. So she's better at heat pumps than she is at IT. That's what I always say. But I mean, I'm nothing to do with sales. I don't get involved in sales, so I can't comment on how things are getting better or whatever. But what I have noticed is, and it's for me, it's a bit of a pain. I'm now getting loads of emails from like retail, the end users, and it's either people that have got a heat pump that's not performing very well at all, or someone that's interested in having a heat pump, saying, can I recommend them someone if they do a course, blah blah blah. Can I recommend them someone that's actually going to do a good job?
Yeah.
Because I think a good percentage of the retail customers are now realizing that the job is down to the ability of the installer, not the quality of the kit that you fit in. Bottom line, it doesn't matter what heat pump you fit. If you fit it correctly, it's going to give you a good COP. It might not be the best one in the world, but it's going to be good. But it's the only person that can do that is the installer.
Yeah, and that's what I was gonna come round to you, Kimbo, anyway, and talk about the guys that come on your courses. We know that they're the types of guys that are already interested in being better and best practice and getting to know how to do it the right way.
Yeah.
Are you seeing a difference in the types of people?
Yeah, for sure. So I think there are more people that are already fitting heat pumps coming now than used to be. I don't ask people loads of questionnaires and everything. There's a few questions I ask people when they join up, name and address, that sort of thing. Are you fitting them at the moment? Do you fit oil boilers? Just get a feel for the sort of guy that's coming. In the early days, the guys that were fitting them didn't come, and it was guys that weren't fitting them that were thinking of fitting them, or that were coming, or guys that wanted to get better just generally in gas installations. But I've noticed now more and more, because more people have fitted them after having just done a 3-day, this is how a heat pump course works, the 𝗵𝗲𝗁𝗃 thing, being signed off as qualified or whatever, going out to fit them and realise there's a lot more to it than just the bits that the 𝗵𝗲𝗁𝗃 side of things is. And when they actually get in the house, they don't actually know why it's not working or what they need to do to get it to work. They've all heard horror stories about pipe sizing and radiators, but even the guys that come that are fitting them, I ask them questions like, how do you oversize a radiator, or what's the correction factor for heat pumps or whatever, and they don't know. And I'm far too polite to be rude, but in the back of my head, I'm thinking, well, okay, if you don't know, what the bloody hell are you doing in someone's house fitting the radiators if you don't know what size they need to be, and how do you know the pipe work's going to get the energy to the radiator, and all the really simple things that you need to know. And none of it's rocket science. There's no rocket science in heat, or there doesn't need to be rocket science in heating. You just need to have a basic understanding of flow and velocity and pipe sizing, and that's a relatively easy subject to master. And once you've got that, you think, right, okay, I know how big this pipe needs to be to get that amount of energy into the radiator. I know how big the radiator needs to be if I reduce the flow temperature. And hey, suddenly we don't need buffers and all the rest of it. And that's another bloody thing. We don't get, the only support we get is support that makes everybody else rich. Do you know what I mean? This thing about buffers, I am the antichrist of buffers. And we don't have to prove it. You go to Norway, there's no buffers in Norway. They don't use them. It's only us that use buffers, and it's because we don't know how to do the bit inside the house properly. And so the manufacturers are saying, well, we'll bang a buffer in between our bit and their bit, so I'm all right, Jack, on the outside. And any problems, any COPs that are horrendous, well, don't phone us, phone the installer.
Well, the problem is, Kim, as well, isn't there? There's a sales bit as well. So you know what I mean. And I posted it on our group this week, and You know, we've got technical managers and things like that of companies who manufacture buffers selling buffers. Do you know what I mean? They're not selling them because they're actually required. They're selling them because they've got products to sell. Do you know what I mean? And it's a horrible transition phase that we are in, because I can see it from both sides. I can see that the manufacturers want to still sell their products, but some of their products are becoming redundant. You know, this is a terrible thing. You know, so you know you've got that bit where, you know, how does that pan out? Do you know what I mean? How do you know, these guys that were asking us to stock one type of product, all of a sudden that product's now redundant. You know, and you know, how does then a merchant go then? Well, hang on a minute, what am I going to do with this 100K's worth of stock I've got? Do you know what I mean? And you know, do you keep lying to your customer? Well, he's not lying, but do you know what I mean? Do you keep lying to your customers and saying, oh yeah, these are required to shift your stock, or do you actually say, well, actually they're not required? Do you know what I mean? It's such a hard business at the moment.
It's also too easy for the manufacturers to blanket say, if you don't fit it, we're not going to warranty it. When you say to them, I don't need that because I can show you that my bit works, your bit works. We don't need that bit in the middle that balances everything out when there's problems. But it's like a blanket thing. Well, if you don't fit this, and this, you're not going to get the warranty. And so even when you want to do it right, you still end up fitting all this extra junk that you don't need. The poor old customer has to pay for it. Nobody benefits from it, you know. And it's like new cylinders. You know, loads of unvented cylinders. We could bang a plate on the side and reuse those, but no, that's got to go to landfill. We've got to put another 1,500, 2 grand with the cylinder in, and we wonder why these things are 15 grand to install. I mean, my angle's been, don't fit the buffer. You know, bang a plate on a 4-year-old unvented cylinder. Yeah, it ain't going to be perfect, but it means you've got the budget to do the bit you need to do properly, not to cheapskate on the radiators, not to say that'll do. We'll probably get away with that. There's only a few cold days in the year. They probably won't complain too much if it is cold. Do you know what I mean?
Well, let's face it, the hot water aspect of it is this probably, you know, it's a small amount of energy used for a heat pump anyway, isn't it? So, you know, if you're spending, you know, I mean, I don't want to diss the hot water things because we're looking at our own hot water cylinder ourselves. So I don't want to diss the hot water, but in some scenarios, like you said, if you've got a 2-year-old cylinder that's already in there, and
crazy to change, isn't it?
It is mad to change it because it's another 1,500 quid, 2 grand on the bill that possibly didn't need to be there. Do you know what I mean? You know, it's
just talk while we're talking about cylinders, and a prime example. I'm just loosely involved in a horizontal cylinder, right? Horizontal indirect on a heat pump, and they put in an ordinary an ordinary 80 degree, probably a better word, an ordinary 80 degree flow temperature cylinder. And I think it's got about 0.7 of a cubic square meter of area on it. And they're wondering why there's no heat left in the house. Well, we've worked out it's going to take 4.5 hours to reheat the cylinder. You know, and of course it's priority hot water, so it's just going to hang on in there until it's hot. And that's the difficult bit, because the guys that installed that, in their heads, they've been doing that for 15 years with boilers, and it worked. Yeah. And if you don't understand how heat pumps,
you know,
the difference between the two, and this is where all the bad press comes from. It's not because these guys are idiots. They're not idiots. They're good at their job. They just, A, don't realise that there is a real difference between how you need to approach these things, and B, to actually realise that and go and do something about it. Now, the problem is, of course, there aren't many places where you can go and do something about it. You can go and do your 𝗵𝗲𝗁 course and your low temperature heating course, but that still doesn't tell you the nuts and bolts, the Ohm's law of it all, you know, the basic fundamental stuff. Was it mass flow calculation, isn't it? The basic stuff you need to know to make all these things work, which for some bizarre reason, none of our heating engineers get taught anywhere.
Yeah, and it's some of the problem, isn't it, Kimbo? I mean, you know, it's they teach you all the good stuff, don't they? You know what I mean? If you go on a manufacturer's training day, they show you all the perfect installs, you know, how it should be done, but they don't show you the crap out there and then go, how do we fix this, guys? Do you know what I mean? You know?
Yeah.
But we're getting that, you know.
Sorry,
I was going to say, we're getting that. We're now getting, you know, installs that haven't worked. Got a sort of sign-up package called the Heat Pump Doctor, and we're sort of having to gather all this information, predominantly Eco4, not all of them though. And we're having to go through and assess. Have you got a buffer? You know, how's it piped? How many pumps have you got in the system? What kind of cylinder have you got? All this stuff.
And how many homeowners know that?
Say what?
Well, it's amazing, Claire, actually. If you go on like there's a heat pump group, isn't there? I forget what it's called. Heat Pump UK and Ireland, I think it is. Is it that group? You go on there, the amount of homeowners on there who, honestly, I get a bit sick of it some days, actually, because it's very homeowner centric. But you know, the same stuff keeps coming up in there. Got problems with this. Got low COPs. Got issues with this. Keep getting error codes coming up. You know, and it's the same thing. It's the eco schemes. Most of these are struggling with.
But I tell you what, Rich, I do think with there's one Heat Pumps UK and Ireland, and there is also the Paul Spence one, which Heat Pumps UK. Yeah. But I have to genuinely say, I mean, I got really obsessive with them, and I was sort of just absorbing it all and being reassured that they actually people go on there and they are getting good advice. Yeah. And I think, you know, even a new panicked person can come along, and I would go back and see if someone else had already answered my question, but they'll throw out their example, and I don't know, nine comments out of 10 are, you've come to the right place, we've got you, don't worry, we'll figure it out. And I just think that is such a useful tool.
Absolutely.
It is. I can't do it though, honestly, because I do it all day, every day. Do you know what I mean? So then going home at night and then doing it as well, I'm like, oh my God, I got to stop. Like, do you know what I mean? I'm gonna have like a cardiac or something.
I feel a bit saturated sometimes. Like if I'm on a Sunday morning, I'm like, what am I doing?
Just in there, you're like, just fixing the world. Do you know what I mean?
It is not sad, but I think also. Imagine what it would be like if all the gas boiler owners had a COP meter that told them how inefficient their systems were.
Could you imagine?
Their systems were running 80% or whatever. The whole network would crash, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
You know, and I think installers are used to. I wouldn't say getting away with it. They don't go into a job and think, oh, we'll get away with this. They don't know that they're getting away with it. They just do what they've always done, and you get hot water out the tap, and the radiators get hot, and you think, well, you know, what more do you want? Of course, we need a bit of efficiency now. So I don't think anyone does this deliberately, but it's only the heat pump. It's interesting how people that can monitor the wastage are all freaking out over it, because nobody wants to waste money, do they? Yeah. It's all right saying, oh, I'm now using less energy than I was, but actually, if you're still wasting energy, even though you've reduced the wastage, you want to sort that extra bit out as well, don't you? And if
that is the beauty of heat pumps, is that you can, now I think that people have proven it, you kind of got this thing in your head, you could potentially get your heat pump up in the 4s. Obviously the exceptional installs are going to, might be touching 5, but that's going to be very, very rare. But, if you're in your 2s, do you know what I mean? And you can get in your 4s, you can double the amount of energy into your circuit. If you've got that knowledge, and that can become quite obsessive for homeowners. Oh my God, I've got 2.3 or a 2.4 COP coming up. And
the trick is then, so how do we get our installers to do that? Not the ones that want to do it. I see the ones that want to do it. How do we get the ones that don't know that they need to do it?
They're the ones at the end of the day that are doing this. They're our sort of consumer campaign, aren't they? The guys that are out there on the tools fitting the stuff, they're the ones that, I mean, recently a friend of mine had needed a new boiler, asked their installer about, should I look into whether a heat pump is suitable, and they said no, it wouldn't work in this house because of this, that and the other, and you'd need to massively upsize everything, and it's just not suitable. Yet they've got a garage for all the bits and bobs that you've got in your plant room, Rich, and space for this, and the installer was just like, nah. And it's these guys that, these guys are the ones who need the education, and are they getting it? That's the question. They go and do their gas safe every 5 years because they have to. I know what we all think about that,
but it's hard work, isn't it? You know what I mean? It's just, you know what I mean? This is what I mean about education, though. I mean, like the gas safe thing, you have to go every 5 years. You don't learn anything that you knew before. You get bored to death for a week, and you get
recertified,
reabsorbed into the system. Do you know what I mean? And it's it just frustrates the hell out of me. I mean, I'm probably not going to renew my gas safe. So when it runs out in 3 years' time, I'm probably not going to renew it. But I just think at the moment, like with the way things are and the big changes that there are out there, that there's so much more the government could do.
Yeah.
And they just don't do it. They just don't put the money into the right areas all the time. You know, I mean, they've got the incentive there, but then you've got people going out there fitting it wrong. Do you know what I mean? So if they
we're going to go into this in bigger detail, aren't we? In the next session, we're going to talk about training and what that journey looks like. But do you think that the gas, I don't know how, and I've just thought this, but do you think that somehow that gas safe re-accreditation should include, I don't know, a session on, do you want to be involved in heat pumps? And this is what it means, and this is what you've got to do, and sort of like priming up the guys that are doing it already, and they're all accredited.
Well, I think my comment on that would be,
I was going to say, and cannibalise their own sales. You know what I mean? Because that's ultimately what they're doing, aren't they? I mean, it's easy money for these centres, isn't it?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's all financially based. I mean, if you think about gas safe itself, you used to get, I think you used to get an inspection every year, and then you wouldn't see a bloke for 5 years, and then in the end, a whole load of you go to a training centre and you do it there, which in my mind is ridiculous, because gas safe is just interested in making money, and so they're not going to spend an extra hour teaching anybody anything unless they get more money. Yeah.
But they're not.
It's the big difference, isn't it?
You say about cannibalising their own sales. At some point, gas safe isn't going to even be a thing. Yeah. So they're priming themselves up for their future customers if they diversify and go in a different direction.
You could say that about all the ACS centres as well. I mean, if I owned an ACS, or anyone that owns an ACS centre must be having a bit of the squitters at the moment, because they know that their time with gas is limited. I mean, they've got plenty of time to sort something, but their time with gas is limited. And I do have a good example of what these guys are doing. I went and did a low temperature course, and I spent 3 days with a chap that had done 35 years at British Gas. Usual routine, which is great. Get a very experienced gas man. He's finished only 35 years at British Gas. He comes out and you put him to stud, if you like, in an ACS centre, so he can use his knowledge to help other people. And it's great. This guy was sent on a 3-day course to get qualified in low temperature heating, and then a fortnight later he was teaching it. And when I wasn't quizzing him, but when I was chatting to the guy during the dinner hour, one of the things he said was, "Please don't ask me any questions because I don't know the answer." And he was reading it off the PowerPoint, and yet everybody there passed. Everybody came out an expert, you know. And the 𝗵𝗲𝗁 thing that I did, when we got to the part of the day where, you know, the next heading was pipe sizing, the guy said, right, you know, right, what's next then, lads? Right, pipe sizing. Right, just stay away from microboard. Right, what's next? And I'm thinking, hang on, woo, mate.
We're not going to name what course that was on, Kimbo. No. But I was there with Kimbo, and he said, "Yeah, 8 mil isn't suitable." And I went, I didn't say anything. Kimbo goes, "What do you mean 8 mil's not suitable? Well, you've done the maths on it." And I was like, I was just sitting there going like this, down in the chair. I was like, you know what I mean?
Falling into your shell.
I was just like, what? Honestly, he was like ready for a fight. And like, I mean, the problem is, you know, this, like Kim says, the rules of thumbs that we've been using for so long, it's all gone out the window now. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
We can't be saying statements like 8 mil isn't suitable. Well, hang on, have you done the maths on it first? Because it might be suitable. That cylinder might be suitable. Those rads might be suitable. Do you know what I mean? If you've not done the maths, though, you're not going to know if they're suitable or not. You know, you can't just say, you know, and I was just like, well, I was a bit torn, really, because, you know, we'd been invited on this course, you know what I mean? You know, and I was just like, well, if you don't know, you shouldn't really get into subject matter. You don't, you know what I mean? Especially with a group of guys, you don't know where they've come from. You don't know what training they've had or even who they are, potentially. So you don't even broach the subject. If you don't know, don't keep away from the subject, isn't it? Do you know what I mean?
That then leads us on to the next problem. So I think Adam, you know, Heat Geek Adam, he posted something or did a video or something quite recently, and I think he really nailed it. He was saying, you know, we know there's all these problems, this, that, and the other. What's the lowest common denominator? And of course, the common denominator is the installer. Okay, so all right, that's the problem, that our installers at the moment don't have the knowledge to competently go and do these jobs and understand all the maths and get everything right. So then you think, right, what can we do about that? Well, okay, we need to educate, train, call it whatever you want them. Who's going to train the trainers? Who's going to train the trainers? You know, if you think about the number of people that we collectively know that could stand up in front of a class and explain mass flow calculation and, you know, bit of velocity, a bit of this, that, and the other, and all the stuff we need to know. Yeah, how many people do you know that could do that? And of those people that you know, how many of them are interested in being instructors? How many of them would take the pay cut to be an instructor and work at an ACS centre? How many of those people that are prepared to do that and go to an ACS centre could actually stand in front of a class and deliver it?
That's the problem.
You know, who's going to train the trainers? You can't just read a bloody PowerPoint.
Well, you won't pay the trainers enough either.
And no one will pay the trainers enough. No.
They could go and work on the tools or for another company, you know.
If you know how to do this stuff, teaching people is like your worst option for money and you know, that kind of thing. And
it's going to be, isn't it? For a long time, it's going to be, and this is where it always gets missed, you know. And I do feel sorry for the guys in the ACS centres because it's the same old boys, isn't it? It's always the British gas lots who have retired and they're just doing it for a couple of days a week to make some money. Yeah, and you know what I mean. It's just easy graft for them. You know, this isn't easy. No. This isn't easy. If you've really got to know your stuff when you're doing the training on the heat pump side, you know. And well, I say you've got to know your stuff. You've got to know your stuff to get those efficiencies. Yeah. If you just want to bang them in, it's relatively simple. But you know, there's a bigger picture to this, and we're missing it. We're still missing it at the moment. Yeah. And Kim sees it. I hear it on the phone every day. So you know, the amount of randomers that we get call us up, just asking questions about nothing to do with actually, because, you know, bear in mind, we sell stuff. Yeah. So when we're getting installers ringing us up and asking us questions about installs that they're doing, you know, you are. I mean, you know, it's not their fault that they don't know the things that they should know, but you know, that's the state of where we are. You know.
Yeah. Well, I did a bit of. You know, I'm like retiring and I'm trying to find a way out and I'm trying to find a way of putting it online. And you know how crap I am with all things IT. So that's going to be an uphill struggle. Just starting, never mind getting anywhere with it. But a while back, we've got a local college here that does the sort of building plumbing type stuff. And I wandered around and chatted to one of them and said, look, this is me. This is what I'm doing. This is the little bit that I'm good at. I'm trying to find a way of doing something with it after I retire. And I was interested from their professional point of view on how you go about setting a curriculum and getting someone to agree to the I don't know who these people are, but someone like City and Guilds. I mean, in the old days, City and Guilds, that was it, wasn't it? You either passed or you failed, and they were the people that decided. They set the courses and all the rest of it. Now, I mean, just about anyone, I think, I don't know how it all works, because when I tried to go there and say, look, how about if we did 1 day release for 10 days? Let's say we did a 10-day course. And we did 1 day release every Monday, let's say. And so that bloke could still work 4 days a week. And at the end of it, there'd be like a proper test, a proper exam. We'd have plenty of time to do them. We could, you know, set things up properly. We could have practical, we could have theory, really get them to understand it. So when they leave you, they haven't just got a bit of paper. They've got some bloody knowledge to go and do it with. So I think I'm going in there saying all the right things to these educators. Oh, this bloke wants to educate people. He's one of us. That'll be great. All they were interested in was the money. All they were interested in was the money. And I said, well, okay, who do I go to see them for a curriculum? Do I phone up City and Guilds and say, hey, you know, my name's Kimbo. what do I need to do to set a curriculum?
Who sets those? Yeah.
I mean, I know Nathan is into all this stuff. Nathan sort of knows where apprenticeships and that come from. But if you're not Nathan and he's busy enough doing other stuff, and you haven't got a lifetime to try and fight the system to get something to change and to work, you might as well give up. And I did. I just gave up. All they were doing was telling me how much it was going to be per person per day if I wanted to host it there. I said, you're missing the big picture. I need to know how to do it. Sorry. They're
going to have to make changes to the curriculum. Surely, whoever does that, one would assume it was something to do with the government, right? That the curriculum is set in some way by some central body. But they're going to have to, because like we said just now, the gas safe stuff and all the stuff that the plumbing guys are learning now is not going to be relevant. Okay, there's going to be maintenance and repairs, etc. But at some point, that's not even going to be needed either. And these guys, where are they? That at some point that has to change, surely.
Yeah.
Why? And the government have got this target of 600,000 a year that they've got. I don't even know how many installers there are these days, but there seems to be a massive disconnect.
Yeah. Well, a colleague of mine, his son is just leaving the army, and he's looking at resettlement courses and that sort of stuff, and he wants to be a plumber. He wants to do gas. So anyway, I ended up chatting to this guy, proper guy, about 35, done his 20 years or whatever, a competent guy that's got good transferable skills, the sort of guy that you need in this sort of industry. And so the first thing I said to him is, right, you ain't doing gas. I'm telling you that now. Not if you get involved with me. Gas is done. We need to do renewable. I said, I know that all the people, essentially Nathan Van Gamlin. I said, leave it with me. I've heard all of these things about the new apprenticeship and all the rest of it. I'll get back to you. And cut a long story short, Nathan was his usual helpful self, gave him some phone numbers and said, I think this thing's moving here, there and everywhere. It would appear that there are 4 places in the UK that this September are going to start doing renewables. And so I said to one of the guys that Nathan put me on to, all right, what's the curriculum? Does renewables mean, is you going to do solar? Are you going to do biomass? What does that actually mean? What's the curriculum? Is it split? Are there 5 separate courses or whatever for the different sort of trades within it? And he said, well, hang on a minute, mate, we haven't even got the first one up and running yet. He said, I don't know what the curriculum is. It's starting in September. Apparently it's only in 4 colleges across the UK. Well, I mean, what?
Not quick enough.
Is that
not enough? Not even
not
just
enough.
Can you imagine?
Not everyone's going to be able to.
They're going to be 18, 19, 20. And so they learn the new stuff, right? And then they get employed by someone. And the guy says, oh, no, that's, the guy that knows, who's 18, says, oh, actually, I don't think that's the right pipe size. And his boss is going to go, slap, I'll tell you what the right pipe size is. Hang a bit of 22 in, mate. I've been doing this for 30 years. And so the confidence and the knowledge that this guy's got is really going to be difficult to move into the industry because it's coming from the apprentices. Can you imagine the apprentice being the only guy in the crew that knows what's going on?
That's the problem as well, isn't it? When when you're apprentice and you go back to your gaffer and you go, oh, mate, we need to be doing it in 28. No way, mate. We ain't got the materials on this job. You're doing it in 22. Yeah? You know what I mean? That's how it goes, isn't it? And these, and you kind of think, why have the or college, or why is the college or that guy at that college that actually knew what he was talking about, who actually he was giving you some good information. You take it back, and then they're like, "No, we're not doing that, mate. We ain't got the materials in this job. That's going in 22, or that's we're doing that, or we're not." You know what I mean?
That's part of the problem that we've got is because you can't take that attitude and that way of working into heat pumps because if it needs 28, it ain't going to work on 22. Do you know what I mean? You haven't got a spare 40 horsepower of bloody 20 kilowatts in the kitchen.
Well, that's what I mean. 22 was always the oversized for 15, wasn't it? Do you know what I mean? That's you know what I mean. So. Yeah. I don't know. It's very difficult. But it's got to get there, isn't it? But we're going to go through all this pain, though. You know what I mean? Well, the guys are already. If you look on social media, actually, Damo and a few of the others picking up these eco jobs, they're looking really like. I've seen some horrendous work in my time. But you do wonder what goes through the mind of someone who puts pipe work externally and doesn't insulate it. You know what I mean? You think, well, that's your heat generator out there, mate. Why haven't you insulated the pipe work into the inside? You know what I mean? And
that's one of the things that I sort of throw into the combo when we're chatting in the early, the first couple of hours is, I think the most popular heat pump's about 6 kilowatts these days, and the most popular boiler's about 30 kilowatts. So I said, you're going to rock up with a 6 kilowatt heat pump, and you're going to be taking out a 30 kilowatt boiler, and that 6 kilowatt heat pump is going to do the heating and the hot water. So the logical question's got to be, what's the other 24 kilowatts for? And of course, it's for pissing up the wall and wasting and getting it wrong. And I said, you talk about
that's for warming up. That's for warming up the house quick. That is.
Oh, well, there's that one as well.
That's what it is.
And that's another difficult sell. The days of running to the first radiator to beat the heat there when you fire the boiler, they're gone, aren't they? Because when you do everything properly, everything's like slow and gentle and
well, that's the beauty of what can happen, though, isn't it? Because my system. Before I ripped it all out and I've started again, my system was just ticking over. So it just literally, I I think most of the winter, my flow temp's been about 30, 29,
Wow.
30 flow temp.
Amazing.
And it's just literally like, come on, because I did have a buffer on it. I've took it out now. I've turned it in. I've turned it into a volumizer now, and that's a two-pipe volumizer.
Wow.
So I got a 300-litre volumizer. So, but if you think about it logically, when you're running really low flow temperatures, you need a buff. You do need a volumizer because you've not got that capacity, if you know what I mean. You know, you can argue it out as much as you want. You can do it direct, and you know, mine is semi-direct. But you've got to think about things like that and have logic behind what you're actually trying to achieve with your design. Do you know what I mean? And
but everything we're talking about is behavioural change, isn't it? It's like, like when you have a heat pump, it changes how you act within how you interact with your heating system and all that. It's a different, and when you get solar panels, it changes your behaviour, and we're asking installers to change their behaviour as well.
No, and that's a really tough thing, isn't it?
It's a tough thing. It's hard, and I don't think anyone who's trying should be like, you've done this wrong, you're stupid. We shouldn't be like that. We should definitely be, like, come on, let's do this together. Look, this bit was off, you didn't need this, we needed to sort out this, and we need to just be a little bit more accepting of people who are trying, I think. And Claire, going back to getting the people who are on the coal face, all our gas installers and all that kind of stuff, I don't know how we're going to get them to not pull those faces when someone asks them about a heat pump. But if we can figure out how, I think it will just shift everything. The amount of people who are curious but then get told no by their heating engineer. Yeah,
and it must be immediately. Like they literally turn off immediately, don't they? Homeowners.
Just the knowledge. It's just that gap in there. It's the gaps in their knowledge and their gaps in their experience. Because this, you've got to think with very early adopter stage. The guys. The problem is with us guys here collectively. The guys we know, they're the guys doing it. Do you know what I mean? But they're like the 0.001% of guys doing it that we know. Yeah. So, but everyone else is not doing it. That's one thing that I've had to have in my head for years now. When we've been doing the gas boilers and priority hot water, that there was a tiny fraction of people doing that, and that tiny fraction are now doing the heat pumps. But you've still got your 99.846.
Yeah.
Still doing gas.
Isn't that because like it's seen as being difficult, complicated? The actual process. I mean, we will go into this more, I think, on our next.
It is.
But the whole process is overcomplicated, and
the whole process is a nightmare, Claire. The whole process, the MCS thing, the whole MCS process, the whole lot is a nightmare.
They don't even have to do MCS, do
planning permission, the planning permission things with heat pumps, everything is just. Do you know what I mean? Everything is just there in its way. Do you know what I mean? Just like someone's
there are a lot of companies
don't really want these. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of companies, and there's a lot of movement in the people who are trying to streamline that and make it easier for an installer. A lot. I mean, it's all I ever hear about is how can we make this easier for an installer? Well, we're going to do this. We're going to do your paperwork. We're going to do your heat loss. We're going to do your, or your pipe sizing even if you've got measurements. I think there are definitely businesses out there who are really trying to help that, and I think if we can get gas engineers to accept that maybe a heat source is a heat source. Kimber, it's something you always say in your training, isn't it? At the end of the day, it's just a heat source. Gas boiler, heat pump, whatever, it's getting the design right on the other side, and it can be the same for gas or for heat pump. If it's a low temperature heating system, a lot of the it's parallels, massive amount of parallels. So, all the MCS and all that other kind of stuff, if we can figure out how to make that easier for everyone, then I think, maybe we'll start to get through to that kind of I can't be bothered, or, that incentive. It's creating incentives again.
And
the demand's there, isn't it? Sorry, Claire.
No, I was just going to comment on something Rhiannon said about, there's companies that are willing to do bits of this, that, and the other. And I think when we first started doing this a couple of years ago, Rob mentioned that, that's probably the way it's going to go. That it's going to be someone who does a heat loss calculation. There's going to be a different someone who does the design of the system. There's going to be a different someone who goes for the planning permission. There's going to be a different someone who does. So it's not going to be your guy comes in, looks at your house, puts your boiler on the wall, fixes your radiators, does all the rest of it. It's going to be an amalgamation of different skills that are going to be, and these businesses are going to come out, aren't they? They're going to.
That's how you make it cheaper. Yeah. Make it cheaper, make it streamlined. That's how.
That's what every big company's got over you as an installer, as a one-man band installer. That's what every big company's got over you, is that they've got that infrastructure in place. The guy that looks after the planning permission, the guy that looks after the paperwork, the guy that does the install, the guy that does the design. Those big companies have got all those guys where, you know, Damo, Liam Barry, a few of the other guys, they're all out there. Do you know what I mean? On their own, doing the lot, you know, and I'm amazed how they do it, because I'll be honest, I like installs, but I hate paperwork. Yeah, I can't. You know what? And that's what puts me off personally. Doing the, you know, if I was out there now and I was an installer, you can be a brilliant installer. You can do brilliant pipe work, get the design of the pipe work right, get all that bit right because you've been on Kimbo's course, right? But then you come off and you're like, oh my god, like, I've got planning permission to sort, I've got to speak to the DNO, I've got to do the MCS registration, I've got to do all that.
They're not familiar with it, are they? They're not. It's out of their comfort zone. It's a lot.
Oh, you've gone, Rhiannon.
You've gone, Rhiannon. Rhiannon, you're on off. We got a few clickies there, didn't we? There.
Oh, no. He's not gone.
Oh, you've gone. No.
She's mid-flow then as well.
Oh, she's going to come off and come back on again.
It is one of those, isn't it? It is a lot. There's no denying it. The reality is, though, it's got to be done. We've got to do this. Yeah. That's the reality. We've got to do this. But oh my God, is there a lot of people, or a lot of companies, or a lot of people individuals or whatever in the way of you just putting a heat pump in? You know what I mean? Because let's face it, with a gas boiler, we go to the merchant, you buy a gas boiler, you rock up, you fit it, you rock off. Yeah. Well, I think you can't do that with a heat pump. You turn up to your merchant, you've got a heat pump on one pallet, a cylinder on another pallet with rads. Do you know what I mean? You ain't going to be rocking up and doing, you know what I mean? So there is a bigger process to it. Yeah. But I appreciate, because I look at it from the merchant side. I think, oh my God, where the hell are we going to fit all that? Do you know what I mean? Because how are we going to put 10 heat pumps in there and all the rads that need to be and all the cylinders? You know what I mean? We're going to need another unit. And, you know, I always, you know, it's such a, I mean, you know, I've loved this week. So I had the week off work last week and this week, right? I've absolutely loved doing all this. I haven't done any tools work for about 8 years now, 9 years, right? But I was a bloody good installer back in the day. I was a good installer, right? And I've loved it. I've absolutely loved doing this today, putting loads of principles in place that I didn't know about. So all the stuff Kim talks about on his course, right? Putting all that into practice and then putting it into an install and making an install like this, it's brilliant. There's nothing better than that. But then to get bogged down with the paperwork, do you know what I mean?
And that's got to be the bit that's going to put most people off.
I mean that's the bit that needs nailing, isn't it? That bit, the planning permission needs nailing, the paperwork bit needs nailing, the MCS bit needs nailing. If those bits got sorted, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Rhiannon, are you there?
Yeah, I think so. Can you hear me?
Yes, can hear you. Just wonder if you've got you want to say that last bit before we
wind it up.
What you were trying to say?
I can't remember. I genuinely think that it will get streamlined because it has to. There's no way that we can provide the scale that we need to without it happening. I think, you know, I don't know, places like Installer are really good for sort of encouraging people who come along who are maybe, you know, predominantly gas, but we can kind of like, I mean, every year Installer just gets more heat pumpy, and I just think it's a really good platform for sort of, you know, answering people's questions and maybe them thinking, all right, next time someone asks me about a heat pump, I won't pull a face. I'll kind of go, do you know what? Yeah. People keep asking me about it. let's see if we can do it. It's that kind of thing I think will really massively change, you know, sort of what we're looking at, and also having that consumer confidence. Again, I keep talking about it, but I think
so important.
The more and more people are,
today, and consumers are the ones forking out the money.
Yeah,
and they're the ones that have got to get used to that lower temperature of the radiators and the non, you know, speedy heat up and all the stuff that we've talked about. They're the ones who've got to get used to it. But to your point about installer, Rhiannon, we're going to do some stuff at installer this year, aren't we, guys? We're going to have some, you know, a load of experts there. We're going to be talking about all of this stuff and, you know, trying to guide the guys where to go, what to do, how they do it, how to do it in the simplest way, and really kind of try and be there to be a bit of a support for them.
We can teach them what we can teach them. Do you know what I mean? Because, like I said, you're always going to have these hurdles in place, and that, you know, you've got to have a reality about it. But if you're interested in getting from a gas boiler installer to a heat pump installer, we're gonna show you how to do that on Drayton stand this year. So so that will be really good. And then next month we've got a session that we're really going to focus on the training, aren't we? We're going to sort of get some guys on. We're going to talk about what their experience has been, what they would suggest to be changed, and, you know, the next few sessions are going to be all about this. So thank you guys so much for tonight. It's been really interesting chatting about putting the world to rights and talking about all of the stuff. Rhiannon, the disembodied voice, thank you for persevering. And I think that's just leaves me to say thanks, everybody, and we'll see you next time.
Okay.
Cheers.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.